My name is Nathan John, as introduced, and today I have the pleasure of taking you guys through how to use desktop profiles for emergency and non-emergency communications. Today's presentation would be a rather straightforward one, and hopefully at the end of this, you guys should be able to get some value and use what you've learned today in your own organizations. So not only will I go over how do we use the alert profiles, the desktop profiles, how to build them, how to incorporate them in existing preset alerts. Once we have gone through that, then we'll take a look at building message templates. So without further ado, let us go through what we've set out to do today. Just a quick few words before we proceed. This is how you would reach out to support should you need it. You can reach us at my.alertus.com. This is where you can download product documentation, access our knowledge base, wikis, and you can also create support tickets, or you can give us an email at support@alertus.com, or please reach out to us via telephone. This is a preview of what our client portal looks like, highlighting a yellow banner up top, highlighting different sections of our portal. We've got a search engine so that you can find articles on just about any topic that you may want to research, and also on just about any product that we have available. Item number 3 displays where you'd be able to create a support ticket, check on its status, and we've provided a telephone number so that you can easily reach us. This is just another preview of our portal, highlighting our software download stage. So if you're planning on implementing some new feature and it requires software, we will provide it to you via our portal. So what are desktop profiles? Think of desktop profiles as a way to theme for specific events, keeping it really simple. It's a way to customize look, feel, and sound for different events or emergency scenarios that your organization may encounter. So for example, on my screen, I'm using a lot of red colors. Red is synonymous with emergency type scenarios, but there are other things that we can do. Like we can make these colors green. We can theme it also with your organization's logo so that when a user sees it, they won't think that it's some kind of spam pop-up because it'll be clearly themed. And we can enable sound, all of which I will take you through today. So in a nutshell, that is what a desktop profile is. It controls what your users see on their desktops, how it looks in terms of themes, and then we can enable sound, because we do like thinking about persons who may be visually impaired and for some reason they may not be able to read this message. So we have several different desktop takeover types. We've got a full screen, as its name suggests. We can take over your entire screen. We can take over a portion of your screen via a pop-up. And this pop-up we can place just about anywhere: center of your screen, bottom left corner, bottom right corner, top left, top right, and so on. And then we can do rolling tickers. So it's, as its name suggests, it's just a rolling ticker that scrolls across the bottom of your screen, top of your screen, or a portion of your screen if you like. Highly customizable. And we tend to use these in different scenarios. So whenever I'm doing an implementation, I usually tell my customers, definitely for emergencies, please do use a full screen takeover. Make sure you grab all of your users' attention and please turn on audio, so users are really aware of what's happening. Pop-ups, I tend to use pop-ups and rolling tickers for non-emergency scenarios, some of which I'll take you through today. So those are for scenarios It's not an emergency. It could be a general type notification that your organization wishes to push out to your users. And these work just fine for those scenarios. And of course, my recommendation would be audio optional. Only your organization would know what you'd like to do during that time. Alert services. So we won't spend, when I do get to showing you how to configure alert services, or rather setting up your desktop profile, I will not show you alert services, but I'm mentioning it because alert services are actually a part of your system's configuration. Making mention of alert services will be really brief, but I still think there is value in showing this to you because I'd like to highlight that I have 3 different Alertus desktop alert services. And if you look at their names, they're used for different scenarios. This is a default full screen takeover. This is one where I'm using it in an all clear scenario. And this one, I'm using it as an HR template. So right away, you can see we have one that's really generic for a full screen takeover. We have one that's used for sending all clear messages. And we have one that's used as an HR template. So the HR template could be something that you could delegate to HR and say, look, whenever you want to send out communications to staff, please use this. This is a package template with a look and feel, and it's a nice, quick, easy way to send alerts out. I do have additional services, and my only reason for showing this is to really highlight that not only is our system really flexible and we have several modes of activation, but really to show that for each scenario that your organization thinks about, where desktops are concerned, then we should create an individual service. And I'll show you how we can do that in literally one click. Preset alerts. So preset alerts, this contains your message. So it contains your message, who you're going to send that message to, and then we tie our services into this preset alert. So in an emergency scenario, as someone who is authorized to activate your system, it could be someone perhaps from an emergency response team or anyone really who's authorized to activate your system. They set off preset alerts. So this is like your final package that contains everything. And it just makes your system activation really, really easy. I'll also be showing this to you. And then message templates. So message templates are not to be confused with preset alerts, but these are, think of them as pre-packaged text messages that you can apply to different scenarios. So without further ado, let me take you across to my Alertus server, and I will quickly demonstrate a couple of these for you. So first, when signing into the Alertus console, you would access it by whatever DNS name your organization would allocate to it. In this case, mine is demo.alertustech.com, but yours may be alertus. Whatever your organization name is, .com or .net or whatever have you. But once you've navigated to this page, you log in and you would be greeted with this page. Now, for those of you who are familiar with this page, you would understand that any tab that exists in this gray section here, any tab that exists before my configure system tab allows me to activate my system. In this case, I have 2. In your case, you may have more. It really all depends on what your organization's needs are, and then that would dictate how we would have gone about configuring your system. So I'll come back to these 2 tabs at the end of my presentation. And let me go into configure system. And in our configure system menu, we have tons of things that you can do. But for today's exercise, we will be taking a look at alert profiles and preset alerts, just 2 things. We're going to keep it really simple, yet really effective. So I have a couple scenarios that I've thought up, some emergency scenarios and some non-emergency scenarios that I will be configuring for you today. My first scenario is an evacuation order. So I'm going to start with an emergency scenario. Let's add a desktop profile for my evacuation order. As you can see, none exists. So I'm going to add a profile, click on Add Desktop Profile, and I'm going to call this evacuation order. Next, because it's an evacuation order, because we recommend for emergency type scenarios, we do a full screen takeover, we could select from our varying display modes. So here we have a pop-up, here we have a rolling ticker, and classic, that's our full screen takeover. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And here you have a preview of what your users would see. So let's get to theming this and making this fitting for our scenario. To customize this, we click on Display Mode Variables, and this brings up several options below. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add an icon that is indicative of an evacuation. We can also, as much as Alertus would appreciate the advertising, because we theme this to your organization, I usually recommend that organizations place their own logo so that their users are aware that it's system sanctioned by your organization. So let's add an icon. Clicking on, in my display mode variables, clicking on logo left image, and then image select, brings me to this screen where we have a bunch of preloaded icons. You can add your own by going to upload image, or you can use an image from the internet. Any new image that you add goes to the end of this list. So it's really simple. At the end of this list, it incidentally has my evacuation icon. So let me click on it, apply it, and now when I preview, here is my guy trying to make his exit. Now let's add some more context to this. Imagine this being your organization's own logo. So that's good. And rather than have it simply say emergency alert system, let's call our company Acme Corp. So now when I scroll up to my preview, it's now Acme Corp emergency alert system, company logo, an icon saying, indicating to our users that they should evacuate. Now let's get this alert. We could change this alert color. We can tell it to blink or not blink. Those I won't tamper with for now. I won't modify for now. What I'll simply do is change this text from alert and say evacuate. Evacuate the premises. Awesome. So here is a nearly complete desktop profile for the evacuation order. What I would do, again, considering that this is an emergency scenario, I would enable audio. So even if someone is not looking at your screen or they're visually impaired, they know, because hopefully they can hear it, to please evacuate. Now, turning on audio, we have several options. We can do an audio file. And we have some preloaded audio files. These audio files are a series of emergency tones, chimes, beeps, stuff that would grab your user's attention. Now, in an emergency scenario, hearing a siren or a beep doesn't communicate much to your end users. So let us select something a little more useful. Let's turn on text to speech. So we've got a built-in text to speech engine that reads anything that is populated here. So any message that you put here gets read to your end users. We can tell our system how many times to have this message repeat and control how long between each iteration it would pause for. Next, we can override your user's volume. So if someone has been listening to music before, They may have their volume down really low. No matter what their system volume is, we can override that and play our message. Our final option here is lock and log on screen behavior. In most cases, we leave this as default. Why? Its default behavior is to take over your lock screen or your user's log on screen. So whether they're logged in or not, screen is locked or not, that message will be displayed. I did not touch this enter your custom message text deliberately because this gets overwritten. This is going to be dynamic. And this will make some sense. And that is controlled right here. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. I'm going to click on Add Desktop Profile. And if you recall, when I touched on the alert services slide in my presentation, I said we won't really go into it, but I'll show you how you can configure it with one click. For any build of the Alertus server that is 2020, winter 2020, I believe, you can simply check this box, name it, evacuation order full screen, and hit continue. And by doing this, your service automatically gets created for you and set up. Saves you a few extra clicks and some time. So here we've got our evacuation order. Our desktop profile is complete. Now let's integrate this into a preset alert. So to do that, I would go from desktop profiles to preset alerts. And I would create an evacuation order preset alert. So I'm going to add preset alert. I'm going to call this evacuation order. In the interest of time, I won't put a description, but it's always really useful to describe what your evacuation order is for. In some cases, it may be targeted to a specific building or location if your organization has multiple locations, and as a result, you may want specific messages for each. So really something to consider. Next, where we have this message text, this is where I put what I want my users to see and hear when my desktop gets activated. So this reads, an evacuation order has been issued. Please proceed to your nearest muster point and await further instructions. Your organization is likely to have a different set of text that they'd like to communicate. So please make your messages as clear to your end users as possible. Now, we do have a few extra things that we can put in here, like a prompt for text input and capture preset variables. But for this one, I won't do that. Next, we tell our system how long to keep this active for. We can do as little as 2 minutes to perhaps several days if you'd like. It all depends on what your scenario is likely to be. Next, we leave delivery methods. Specify delivery methods. We leave this as custom and simply select our evacuation order that we created just one step ago. With that selected, now we need to tell our system, who do we target? So we can target all users. And in this case, we're targeting all desktops, not users, but all desktops. Or we can do groups. So if you've got groups set up, you can select specific groups. You can select 1, 2, as many groups as you'd like. Optionally, you can select specific machines. So in this case, I'm just going to target my machine and I'm going to add preset alert. And we're done. We have configured our system for an evacuation order. Really straightforward. So I'm going to do a couple more. In this case, this is an evacuation order that we've done. I won't get to activation yet. I'll show you how we activate in a little bit. So let me click on this star. And I'll show you the relevance of clicking on this star in a little bit. Let me take these off. Good. Let's do another scenario. In this case, I'd like to do a silent test. Silent tests are really good for testing your emergency systems without notifying your users and sending your organization into a frenzy. It's really good for the emergency preparedness teams and just about anyone whose job is to manage their organization in an emergency scenario. You get to test, look at reports, see who gets activated, how long it takes, and that way you can troubleshoot anything. So in the event that there is a real emergency, you have high assurance that everyone gets your message. So let's do a silent test. For this, I'm going to go back into desktop profiles and I'm going to add me another desktop profile and click on pop-up. I'm not going to do a full screen takeover because in this case, we don't want to alert anyone. So I'm going to do a pop-up. And out of our templates, I'm going to find one called hidden test. This is a pop-up so small, it takes up just 1 pixel. Your users cannot see 1 pixel. So it activates their system. It's just that they don't see it. For the hidden test, please note, we won't modify any settings. We're just going to leave it as default since they're not going to see it. And it's really important to ensure that audio is set to no audio. We're going to save this. Oh, I didn't name it. Silent test. And I'm going to add it and create my service for it. Silent test. Hit continue. We're done. And now I'm going to do a preset alert for that. So let's add a preset alert. Silent test. No use putting in any messages because there would be none for them to read. And from this list, I simply select my silent test, select my recipients, and no text. Let's just put please contact our okay, so if for some reason, and this has never happened before, but if for some reason someone does get activated, it's a good practice to put a message that says, hey, if you do see this message, please reach out to us at whatever number. Perhaps we should say that this is only a test. Awesome. So just in case. And you can tell our system how long you'd like to have the test run for. We've selected our service, our recipients, add preset alert. So now we've configured for 2 systems, sorry, for 2 scenarios. We've configured for one emergency scenario that is an evacuation order. We've configured for a silent test, which is really good for your testing teams to troubleshoot your system. Maybe IT has an issue with the network that affects a segment of users. It's really handy to identify that up front. Now, let me add an all clear message. So an all clear message, let's think about this. An all clear message should be something that after an emergency has been activated, then you send another all clear message to your users that says, hey, this emergency condition is now over, so please resume your usual duties. Now for my desktop profiles, I have all clear configured. This is already done. We are familiar with how to add this by clicking on add profile and clicking on add profile. We select our full screen takeover, and this one I pre and we have our audio settings turned on. But in this case, we're using green because green is indicative of a safety or a safe scenario. Sending an all clear with red could be a bit of a confusing thing for an end user. So all clear is good. And you get the idea. You could use different colors for different scenarios based on how your organization is set up. Some organizations, they have code reds, they have code greens, code blues. So it's a nice way to see if your organization was doing a code blue, for example. And for whatever that means to your organization, you could choose to use the color blue. Just get rid of these two characters in here. Good. Acme Corp, emergency alert system. We have a green check mark. We understand how to do this. So we save our desktop profile. Now this has already been created. So we do have an alert service called All Clear. This is already done. So let's add, and we have our All Clear full screen already set up. So that should take care of that. So we've done one emergency condition that says evacuate. We've done one emergency condition that says it's an all clear. And we've done a silent test for testing purposes. I am sure that your organizations may have a lot more scenarios than these. So we've created these scenarios pretty quickly. Then what? How do we activate? Personally, when I'm doing an implementation, I usually guide my customers to preset activations and the custom activations. It works in most cases. So earlier, when I created my evacuation order, I clicked on a little star, and clicking on that star really creates a tile that allows you to quickly and easily access your preset alert that you've configured. If you didn't click that star, then everything else would be in a list. So you could click your drop down, select your scenarios, and move forward. So let me star a few more so you can see them come in. So let me star my all clear, and let me star my silent test. So I went back to preset alerts, and I simply start these. Now, if I go to my preset activation, they've shown up. So how do we activate? Activating in this scenario is really easy. Some of your organizations may have a separate tab for desktop activation. I find this to be much simpler for your activation teams to work with. So, and as you can see, it's really easy to set up. So let's click on this. Once we click on it, we get a preview of what message we'd be sending to our end users. In this case, ERT means emergency response team instructions, but that could be anything depending on your organization. At this point, you've got the option of customizing your message, perhaps adding additional details. Then we click on continue. Clicking on continue brings us to, looks like in my pre-configuration, I had an error. So this is good. What happens if we have an error? That error basically said that I didn't have a service attached. So let's go ahead, take a look at this really quickly. So let me find my all clear. Let me edit this guy. And there we go. Service is not there. So let me add my all clear service and save it. So you guys just got a little bit of troubleshooting there too. Awesome. So let's go again. You can customize, hit continue, and there we go. So this preview page tells you what message you're sending, how long it's going to stay active for before our system automatically cancels it, and then it tells you who you're targeting. Those are the other important fields. So once I click on send, then my system becomes active. When I click send, at the bottom of my screen, a red banner would show up telling me what my message ID is, what message I'm sending, how long it's going to last, and it gives me an option to cancel. So I'm going to activate. After activating, within a few seconds, then you'll see my all clear message showing up on my screen. So you can actually see, and I'm not sure if you will hear it because I'm wearing headphones, but audio will also play, and that audio will read whatever text is in my custom message text. So I'm clicking on send now. My system is active, and in a few moments, my desktop will be taken over. Desktop clients check in between every 15 to 20 seconds. And there we go. So if you can hear my audio, you will hear that this message is being played. So now I'm going to click on acknowledge. I'm going to click on acknowledge. I've acknowledged that message. So imagine an end user clicking on that acknowledge message. It disappears from their desktops. And once it's disappeared, that's it. That user has acknowledged that those instructions and they can follow them. But your system is still active. Why is my system still active? Because we may have machines that are offline or machines that may be slow to get the activation for whatever reasons. Hopefully that has been prevented using a silent test for whatever reason. And this 30 minutes gives think of it as when you activate your system, you want this condition to last long enough to give your emergency response teams time to mobilize and carry out whatever actions that they need to carry out. So that's a usual guideline that I offer for selecting duration. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it is a guideline. So now let me take my system out of an emergency state. I'm going to click on cancel. And when I click on cancel, my system asks me, are you sure you'd like to cancel? I click on OK, yes. And in a few seconds, this will be cleared. Any machines that are still active where users did not click on the acknowledge button, once it's canceled from the server, then in a few seconds, they themselves will also cancel that alert. Let's do another activation. In this case, let me execute my evacuation order. So here's my evacuation order. This evacuation order, we could have asked for input. So if you'd like to say, please evacuate and go to location X, we could have done that, but it's a bit outside of the scope of this lesson. But so you know, you have that flexibility. So I could alter my message text, and now let me click on continue. Clicking on continue, I get my confirmation page and I hit send. My system becomes active, and in a few minutes, I will have a desktop takeover with it. There we go. Awesome. So that is evacuation number 2. So two emergency types. And then let's go to my silent test. And my silent test should display no audio, so should display no visuals, and should play no audio. So evacuating my test, I do have a message just in case someone does get this, then they can reach back out to your emergency preparedness team or whichever team and let them know. So I'm going to click on continue. I'm going to click on send. My server becomes active. And no matter how long I wait, my desktop will never display a message. If it does display a message on this call, it's because I've done something incorrectly. But it's been at least, 5-6 seconds since I've activated. Let's give it about 20 seconds. So just a bit of extra info. Clients they become active or not, or cancel an activation when they check into the Alertus server. So by default, they're scheduled to check in we have different types of devices with different check-in times. So between 10 to 20 seconds is acceptable times for a device to become active. So during that time that I've taken to explain that time has elapsed. So my system is active. but not displaying anything. So my silent test works. So I'm going to cancel it, say OK. Oh, let me do one more. Let me do one more desktop. I showed you 2 full screen activations. Let me now show you what the pop-up looks like. So we're going to add a desktop profile called pop-up. And in this case, I'm going to select one that perhaps IT could use to send out for service advisory. So we've got this. It's neat. This is also another favorite. Using non-emergency colors. It's really nice. We've got this. Let's go with tidy color 1. I like this. So here it's really simple. We can click on display mode variables, select our logos if we'd like to, attention, message, and we could select audio. In this case, it's a non-emergency scenario using pop-up. So let me just do a beep or a short chime. Yeah, let me do a short chime. And I'll do 2. Nice. And I'm going to add this IT. Again, you could choose any template. In this case, we're just going with tidy because it's tidy. And I'm done. Let me copy this name so that I can use it easily. Add desktop profile. We click on add service. Do this. We're done. Next, we go to awesome. Next, we go to preset alerts. And we add a preset alert that simply says it's an IT service advisory. And I believe I have some message text that I can copy in. Good. So please be advised that IT would be performing upgrades to our accounting application this evening. As a result, this service will not be available until tomorrow morning. Please report any issues to our service desk. So next morning, someone logs in and they have an issue. They have instructions what to do. Let's select our IT service advisory. Let me select my recipient, add it, and there we go. Let's activate it. It's not starred, so I select it from my drop-down list. IT service advisory, here's my message. I click send, I confirm it, I send, and in a short while, my desktop should have a pop-up. There we go. Really neat. So these pop-ups, these types of generic templates could be used by any department, IT, HR, and they could have different colors for each. So you only need to theme your pop-ups differently, perhaps HR advisory, IT service advisory as your message headers. Tons of flexibility. So now let me cancel, say OK. Now let's take a look at some reporting. No use in activating our system if we're not able to tell what happened. So device activations. Let's prove that my device got activated with my silent test. So I'm going to go to reports. I'm going to click on device activations. And from my drop-down list, I'm going to select my test. This is only a test. If you're able to see this message, please contact our emergency preparedness team. So here's some information telling you time you sent your message, what message you sent, time it was canceled, some other stuff, which recipients, who sent it, their IP, and how they sent it. Again, really useful. So here we go. This report rather tells us how many devices got our activation. So we're doing a silent test. Offline devices, none. We had one device, an expectation of one device, and we got an activation for one device, 100% activation. And here we go. I should have added 2 so you can see one got it, one didn't. and seconds to activate. So really useful statistics. If you had more machines on your list, then you'd be able to see all of those machines and how long they took to get active. And here is just a summary of machines that go from quick activations all the way down to really long to activate. That way, again, troubleshooting could be done before an actual emergency scenario. So this is our activations report. And for all of our activations, we'd be able to see. So here's my most recent activation, my service advisory, and similar statistics with, you can see. So this is good. Now let's take a look at acknowledgements. Acknowledgements in this case would be anyone who acknowledged your message. So looking at my most recent report, my most recent activation, excuse me, same message that we've sent, only now we're tracking acknowledgements. So if HR or IT wanted to send something out and they required getting user acknowledgements, this report can tell who got the acknowledgements. It's also useful for emergency scenarios. Awesome. So our final item on our agenda today is taking a look at message templates. So message templates are not to be confused with preset alerts. This really is pre-canning of text messages that you can use for different scenarios. There is not much to them. So if I were to edit one, you can see that I wouldn't have a ton of fields to edit. So here's an all clear message. Here is some text, we can use it. So let me add one really quickly. Let me add one called severe weather. Severe weather, and I'm simply gonna copy in some text. Severe weather alert is in effect. Seek shelter away from doors and windows. Move below ground if possible. Once safely sheltered, await further instructions. So I'm going to add this to my message template. And here we go. Here's our severe weather that we just created. So how do we use this? Like, we can go to custom activation in this case. And for custom activation, we could select from a list of our prepackaged texts. So here's our severe weather that we just created. So you can select your message template, edit your text, how long it should last, select what services you'd like to target. So we can do, and note we have different services. So we could use let's use something generic. Do I have one that's generic? Yes. So here's a generic default full screen takeover. And if we wanted to target additional modes of activation, a little bit beyond the scope of desktops, but Alertus does provide different modes of activations like alert beacons and mobile and telephone systems. You get the idea. We could include all of these in our custom activation. Please note the differences between a custom activation and a preset activation. Custom activation gives you a lot more flexibility, but the drawback is it could be a lot more confusing. So for simple activations where you know what you want to do each and every time, preset activations and custom activations for out of pocket type stuff. So let me select a few more devices just so that my report will be slightly different. Good. And I'm going to hit send. Continue. Here we are. So we're sending this message text. Here are our units that we're targeting, different devices we're targeting. If you're interested in settings, we've got different settings for different devices, and we hit send. So my desktop should become active in a little while. My system is now active. There we go. This is generic, so it doesn't have the logo and stuff. So I'm going to acknowledge, cancel. And let's take a look at this report. So for this report, this is a message that we just sent 26 seconds ago. So let's scroll down to the statistics portion. So device activations, we've got 2 alert beacons, 1 desktop. Why does this say? There we go. I know we had an activation. Report was not complete. So here we have, we expected these devices. We expected 2 alert beacons, 1 desktop, a total of 3. One got the activation, 2 did not. And here we can see additional statistics. So we can see that these devices are offline, and my device here did get it. The acknowledgement report is similar. Here's our acknowledgement report showing similar statistics, and a little extra again, if you ever wondered, so I have a deployment with a ton of stuff deployed. How do I know what's online or offline before I activate my system? Then we have a report called device status. So you can click on this. This is my demo server. So a lot of stuff is not connected to it, but this is where you'd be able to see what devices are online, their status, last time they checked in, and it allows you to be really proactive in troubleshooting anything. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I would now pass control back over to Undral, and we'll take your questions. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Nathan. So now is a good time to type in your questions in the Q&A or the chat box, but we do have a couple of questions. So the first question is, when you say desktop, do you also mean those that work at their desk or somewhere else with a laptop?
Desktops in this case really being synonymous with any PC, any computer screen. So anywhere that the Alertus desktop client is installed, that then becomes an Alertus desktop. So it could be a laptop, a PC, mobile device that has the client installed.
Gotcha. Quick question following up with that. So would a person with a laptop working from their home still be able to get their desktop notification?
Yeah, that is right. As long as that person, that remote worker, is connected to the office or is able to connect to the Alertus server, then yes, they would get that activation.
So the next question is, does the configure system menu only populate with those aspects of Alertus that are specifically part of my purchase package, or all capabilities?
It shows all capabilities. So taking a look at the services, it shows all capabilities that our system would do. So we have quite a lot of them, but you select what is relevant to your organization, and once those alert services have been configured, so we have a long list of stuff, but these are those that have been selected and configured. So whenever you go to the alert services page, you'd only see what has been configured for use for your organization. So as an implementation manager, anything that's unnecessary, any defaults that come with our system after install, I usually clear them out. So anyone going after, they don't have to worry, is this useful, is this not useful? It will all be useful because it's custom to your organization.
Thank you. Next question is there a way to use an active hyperlink in an alert message? For instance, if you wanted to include a hyperlink to your emergency evacuation area map.
Personally, that is not something that I've tested, but it is something that I will take away. And if you could provide your contact information, we could get back to you with that. Typically, though, what we'll do is in whatever message we send out to our users, we provide instructions on how to get, provide feedback to any emergency teams. But definitely that hyperlink is something we look into. Oh, I see Ben saying it works. Thank you, Ben. I just have not personally worked with it before, so appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. So next question is, great presentation, Nathan. Very helpful information. Silent test info is great to know. This is the first time I've heard about it. Also, thank you for the explanation of the report. Sorry, this is feedback, but great job, Nathan. The next question is, how can we activate a preset alert using a desktop profile from Rave?
Could you repeat the last part of that question? I got, how do we activate a preset alert from a desktop? The end of it wasn't.
From Rave.
From Rave. So Rave would make use of alert profiles. So you won't, you're not activating a desktop profile from Rave. Rave, if you're activating from Rave, then Rave serves the function of the preset alert in that it sends a custom message. So from Rave, what you'd select is the alert profile. We didn't cover alert profiles in this session. Actually, it was something I thought about, then I took it out. But while we're on this topic, alert profiles are a nice way to group your services and their behaviors so that it could be used either within the Alertus system or from a third party. So here we have our evacuation alert profile. If I were to click on it, then I've got all of my services already packaged. In this case, I have a SIP annunciator, I have a desktop profile, and I have an alert beacon. And each of these, they have colors associated with them, audio, and different maybe blinking patterns and what have you. So Rave would reference your alert profile, and then Rave would reference your groups. So once we have groups configured and the Alertus to Rave integration set up, it would read your alert profiles and your groups. So you can say, look, I want to target my alert profile that it is for this scenario or scenario X, and I'd like to target these users, and then you send it. So when you hit send, it comes in. All those two errors, Caitlin, I see your question. This is my demo server, so I am constantly making changes. These errors really tells me that I have an invalid preset alert and a transmission error for my email. Constant testing, things constantly change, so nothing major. You're welcome. I hope I answered that question about the Rave activation. So that question, I got two things out of it. How do I activate from Rave and how do I activate from my desktop? It's different because we have an application called Desktop Activator that we could configure for, you can right click on it, and where it reads public safety assistance, you could have, that's a preset alert. That is broken, by the way, because I deleted that preset alert. But point being, we could add as many preset alerts as you wanted to that list. So if you wanted to think about the desktop activator is good for end users who you'd like to activate for specific scenarios. So if you had someone perhaps in a customer service type scenario and you're worried about an active assailant coming in, then you can quickly and easily give them the ability to simply right-click, select active assailant, and it fires off an emergency to your emergency response team. In this case, that scenario doesn't call for activating your entire organization, but it calls for activating your emergency response team, who can then look into it and then choose to activate your entire organization. So we can add as many presets here. Alternatively, we can allow the user to press for help, they'll get this form, and this form allows for custom type. You can say where you are. The red asterisks indicate that these fields are mandatory. It's all customizable. This entire form we can change. So we get the users to say, look, I'm in this location, this building, this room, this is my name, here's my contact number, I have a health situation. And I can say Mary needs help. She fainted. This works. So if I would send this, it says, your request for help has been sent. It does not work. Yeah. So again, I use my server for configuring stuff for customers for demos. So I tend to have stuff always moving around. So that should answer your question for how to activate from your desktop and how to also activate from Rave. Oh, before I move on, the Alertus desktop activator application not only gives you this form and the ability to right-click for presets, we can also do desktop shortcuts. So your IT team could perhaps deploy this as part of desktop deployment. We can put it in user start menu. Also really useful if your organization does not want to have a user clicking around the mouse, they can simply press a key combination on their keyboards, and then that would trigger off a specific alert. So your most serious alert, let's go back to the active assailant scenario. Perhaps they can hit Control-Alt F10 or any key combination your organization tells to us, and that would fire off that specific scenario.
Thanks, Nathan. So we are running out of time, so we'll take our last question for the day. And if your question hasn't been answered, please feel free to reach out to your sales representative or contact support. So the last question is, can you set similar profiles for digital signage alerts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some digital signage, we do have a digital signage client, but more and more we find that a lot of our customers use Windows-based digital signage systems. So we are able to deploy our Alertus desktop client, and therefore we are able to use desktop profiles. So a simple answer to that question is absolutely.